Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Small School AD on the Educational AD Podcast. This is our weekly series where we visit with an athletic director at a smaller school. Our definition of a small school is 300 students in the high school or less. And they share their tips and observations on life working in a small high school. We're going to get back to this week's guest, but before we do, as always, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, don't hit that fast forward button so fast. These are all companies that I used as an athletic director. I strongly recommend that you check them out. So take the next 3 minutes, listen to our sponsorship messages, then listen to our interview, and then go and visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to thank our good friends at Hometown Ticketing for their support. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Whether it's more support, more security, or more customization, the Hometown team is here to help you make the best online ticketing solution. It's hometownticketing.com. We want to thank Gipper. Your kids are on social media, and if you're not creating content to celebrate your athletes and promote your teams, you're really missing out. Gipper is used and trusted by over 4,000 high school and college programs, and it's so easy, even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com to get started. We also want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule a live web demo to see their products in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com to get started. We want to say thanks to Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but as an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school, and our coaches just loved all the tools that Huddle provided that let them coach our kids at the highest level. Go to huddle.com to get more information. Huddle.com. We also want to say thanks to Snap Raise. If you're looking for a fundraising platform that works, you found it. Go to snapraise.com. We used it at our school, tremendous success. It works. You can go to snapraise.com, check out their other great platforms. But as I said, if you're looking for a fundraiser, you found it. Go to snapraise.com. We also want to thank Home Campus. If you schedule, if you upload results, if you communicate with your coaches, your parents, your student athletes, if you manage student athlete eligibility and clearance, you're going to want Home Campus. It does all of those things and more. It does it better and does it faster. To get started, just go to homecampus.com. That's it, homecampus.com. We also want to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you want the coolest display of your school records for all the teams, for all the events, or your school's Hall of Fame, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com and take a look at their interactive touchscreen. That's right, touchscreen video consoles. It's also a great way to tell your school's unique story and share your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. We want to thank Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. This is an affordable 20-month, totally online program that allows you to earn your master's, but also you will earn 11 NIAAA leadership training courses. The content is exclusively high school interscholastic athletic administration, and you'll be part of a nationwide network when you're done. To get started or find out more information, go to ohio.edu/info/MAA, the Ohio University Online Masters. We also want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents, your coaches, your student athletes, you're really missing out. Athletic directors already hear back from the complainers. Athletic Surveys will connect you to that small group, but they'll also connect you to the 98% that supports your program. And that information is tremendously valuable when you're talking to a frustrated parent, or maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com to get started. athleticsurveys.com. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Small School AD on the Educational AD Podcast. Got a real treat for you today. We are truly talking with an old friend, and we are actually going international today. Our guest is Jeffrey Koops. Now, longtime listeners will recognize that name. He was a guest on our podcast. I think during the very first season, we were a guest on his very popular podcast. If you're new, Jeffrey, he's a certified master athletic administrator. He's also a certified international athletic administrator. He's a longtime AD and activities director at the International School of Ulaabaatar, and that is in Mongolia. So we were talking before we started recording, so we had a little bit of reunion. But Jeffrey Koops, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, sir. It's always a pleasure to help you in this fantastic journey of yours, and I'm happy to be here this morning.
Well, again, you and I were talking when we first, I guess, advertised. We were looking for athletic directors from smaller schools. And again, for listeners, our definition of a small school is, say, about 300 students or less in the high school, those top four grades. Um, Jeffrey reached out and said that he would love to be on, and I hadn't even thought of the international AD, but immediately said yes. Number one, he is a true pro. He's very active on social media. He's always posting, events at his school and his students. Does a great job of promoting them, and was just very excited to have him on. So, Jeffrey, share with our listeners a little bit, about yourself and your school to put it in context, and then I'm excited to hear what small school AD tips you have.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so my name is Jeffrey Koops, originally from the Netherlands. I ran a podcast for 2 years, the Athletics for Life podcast, but my colleague CD moved on. He's now a director here in Ulaanbaatar, so he has other things to worry about. So we stopped it for a while. Yeah, so this is year 7 in Ulaanbaatar at the International School. Before that, I was in China for 3 years. Our school is the only non-profit school in the country. International schools are popping up all over, but they're all for profit, which is a huge difference with non-profit. Everything from finances to the clientele. Being the only non-profit school here, we have a special clientele, the upper class Mongolians, expats, mining folks, embassies. So we have a different clientele. Our school is now currently around 230 kids total, K to 12, which is a very small school. We were 350 pre-COVID. During the pandemic, we lost a lot of expatriates who left the country. Hopefully, they're coming back. We see some return of people and new faces, which is great. So we're technically a very small school. We have about 100 kids in from grade 6 to grade 12, which is what I have to work with in the athletics program. We've got a very strong local competition with 16 good schools here, which is fantastic. And this year we started a new league with 2 schools from Japan and 1 from Korea. So we've been traveling. We had 6 overseas trips to Japan and Korea, and they came over to Mongolia in the bare of winter, which was an eye opener for them, in minus 40 Celsius. So yeah, a small school, but we do things really well, and we always try to think big.
We've had a number of ADs on our regular podcast that have talked about everything that goes into planning travel. Here in the United States, it might be a long trip, might be a 1 hour bus ride, or a really long trip, might be a couple hours. But when you guys travel, you really travel. You're talking other countries and planes and visas and hotels. Um, maybe separate from the travel, what are some tips that you found in your career as an athletic administrator? I forgot to mention that Jeffrey also is an LTC instructor in the international curriculum for the NIAAA. But what are some tips you can share with all of our listeners that have helped you be so successful as a small school athletic director?
Well, thank you for those compliments, Jake. I think the most important thing for me early on is being from the Netherlands, and AD is not really something that in Europe at the local club level we have. There's no real ADs over there. So I was totally new to this profession, and I knew early on when I moved to China, it was actually given to me. I was like, what is that role? So I learned early on is to find people that know about this stuff way more than I do. And I've been doing that ever since, from MYAAA folks to you to other ADs in the international community to people listening to podcasts. I think you gotta find mentors. You gotta find them early on and keep in contact with them. I think that's my biggest tip. I've learned so much from these people that I can implement into my programs. And actually, everything we've done here is based on their experiences, their mistakes. They prevented me from making a lot of mistakes. Of course, I keep making them a lot, but I try to learn from them. But yeah, finding good mentors, and there's so many around. And I think what's lovely about the AD community internationally, but also in the US, is that they're always willing to share. If I need a resource from someone, they will send it over without even hesitating. Um, in connection to that, the NYAAA get involved. I'm very fortunate to have started early on. I almost quit because I started with the 500 courses, which are very tough for someone like me, international AD. But keep going. You can learn so much. The networking, the resources, and I just step by step got further into the process. And now that I'm certified, I feel more confident in my role. Like I'm doing things based on good resources, good practices, that kind of stuff. So yeah, share, learn from others. That's my biggest tip. Yeah, I gained so much from that. The second one for me is when you go internationally at a small school, long-term thinking. There's so much that you want to do. There's only so much you can do within the time. My first 2 years, I didn't see my family. I was only busy here, working, working, working. And looking back, I could have planned it out a little bit better. So have a 5-year plan. What do you want to accomplish in year one and what in year five? And maybe you can finish your goals from year five and year three, and you start with something else. So if you have the long-term thinking, it reduces the stress a little bit. So because it's so much to do at a small school that you can get overwhelmed very, very easily. And the last one for me actually is something that I've learned recently is at a small school. And because I have a very strong Mongolian connection, my wife is Mongolian, my daughter is half Mongolian, uh, I became the job. And this is a mistake that I made, is that I got too involved in the job itself. I became the AD program, the athletics program. So over the last few months, I've tried to step back a little bit and lead through still connections. That's very important, but also lead through policies, handbooks, and try to keep it very clear for everyone what we're trying to do. Because if you become super heavily involved, you can take things very personal. So that's something I've learned over the last year is that when something happens, it hits you very hard. Instead, when something happens, you should go back to the mission, the vision, the policies, and see, hey, what happened and how can we deal with that? So that's something that I've learned this year is at a small school, you can become very connected. So that's something that you have to take care of and sometimes step back. And leadership is very lonely, Jake, sometimes, you know? An AD can be very lonely. Not many people in the small school understand you, what you're doing. So try to be okay with that sometimes. And being lonely, leadership is also a strength, you know, be able to walk alone. And I've learned it over the last year, actually, that it's okay to be lonely sometimes, because if it's in line with my long-term goals and the school's mission, I can take it on the chin, you know, that's okay.
You know, you bring up such a great point, and I love your initial one. Finding those mentors, building your network.
Huge.
It's so important. It's really I lead with that when I talk to young ADs now. Don't wait like I did. I waited way too long in my career to start building that AD network. But the point you just brought up about the athletic director becoming the program, for those reasons that you just mentioned. There's nobody else in the school that does your job. There's other teachers, there's other coaches, there's even other administrators, principal, assistant principal, but there's only one AD typically. And so it's easy to get sucked in. It's easy to take it on intentionally. Oh, geez, I have to run this program. I'm the only one that can do this. And it speaks to that skill of that tool, if you will, of delegation and, finding a coach and inspiring a coach to maybe take on a role to help you. It's just so critical. I'm so glad you mentioned that. While I've got you, we're going to stray off course just a little bit.
Sure.
You mentioned that you've had leagues for a number of years, and that you just recently brought on a couple of new schools to join your league. Um, how have you seen, let's say, the athletic administration? How have you seen it grow in your area? And I know your area is pretty big internationally, but how have you seen it grow since you first got involved? And as you said, you got involved early with NIAAA. How have you seen the profession grow in your international setting?
Yeah, definitely. There's, in especially, and I'm not so aware of other continents, but in Asia, it's schools are popping up everywhere, left and right. I think like we had, even looking at China, so many schools added over the years. Even in Mongolia, when I arrived here, from the school, I could see my apartment. Now there's buildings everywhere. There's schools popping up everywhere. So when these schools establish, after a while, these kids want to get involved, and these schools are hiring an AD. Normally here, it's like a PE teacher who takes on this role, or in some schools here, it's the science teacher, just someone that has something with sports. Uh, so it's growing, it's growing, and growing. I think it's so important to offer training for these people because they're willing to spend their time and their resources into helping the kids. So I think giving them that training from the NYAAA is really helpful. We're going to do a training early September here with the local Mongolians, the NYAAA, the 901 and 902, just to get them certified. And if we go overseas to teach these training, these courses, and there's a few guys and girls out there that do those courses in Asia, we always get 20 to 25 people to join us. So there's more schools, which means more ADs, which means more training is needed to help each other. But I think the beauty is that because I'm in a lot of WhatsApp groups and also WeChat groups in Asia and stuff, and we're always sharing, we're always, do you know this? Do you have that? Or can you share a resource? Or where do you get your basketballs from? We're always willing to share. And I think that's the beauty of that. So yeah, it's definitely growing. But the international, it's totally different from the US ADs. I could not go to the US and do the job there. I think I would be overwhelmed and stressed out. But the other way, we have so many other things to think about. So it's the same job, but also totally different.
Well, I think you might do okay because very few ADs in the United States are planning trips to multiple countries over a weekend. So, you talked about networking. I talked about networking. If one of our listeners wanted to reach out and add you to their network, and listeners, I'm telling you, you have a tremendous resource here. Or if they just want to find out more about how things work at the international school, what's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, definitely. I will share my email with you. You can drop it underneath on the your podcast. Go to LinkedIn. Just go to my name and you find me. I try to share a lot on LinkedIn, but I try to share a lot that's kids focused, school mission AD focused. I don't like to share a lot about myself, but I like to try to share about other people doing amazing things. Yeah, just get in contact if you need something, a resource or NYAAA. And if I can do it, and anyone can do it. That's the whole thing here. So just get in contact. It's perfect fine. Yeah.
So again, for our listeners, that would be Jeffrey, just like it sounds, and then Koops, Koops, Jeffrey Koops, on LinkedIn. As he mentioned, he's very active, does a great job of promoting his school. Jeffrey, thanks so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to share with our listeners, and all the best as we head into the summer months.
Yeah, thank you, Jake. All the best with the podcast. It's great to talk to you again. And yeah, thank you guys for having me. And if there's anything, just get in contact.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to have to get you back on down the road, talk more about your school. For listeners, we certainly appreciate your support, and we just want to remind you that we upload all of our Zoom recordings to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this every week, featuring a small school athletic director, and just about every day trying to share best practices. So come back next time for the Educational AD Podcast. Thanks again. Always a great time with Jeffrey Koops. So um, before we go, we want to give another shout out to our sponsors. Now, please take a few minutes and visit these folks. They are all great companies that I used as an athletic director. Or in the case of Ohio University, my assistant AD got his master's there, and it was a tremendous experience for him. Ohio University Online Masters. We want to say thanks to Gipper, Huddle, Hometown Ticketing, Snap, Raise, Vital Signs Wall of Fame, Home Campus, Sideline Interactive, Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack, and we'll give a shout out to K-12 Sports Tech. They're our Wednesday Wisdom sponsor. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time on the Educational AD Podcast.